Hi besties, welcome back to the channel. I genuinely feel like I may have just watched the final episode of Sister Wives. I don't know if that's actually true, but that's absolutely how it felt. The way this all was handled, and especially how it wrapped up with everyone insisting they just want to move forward, that they don't want to keep digging into the past, that revisiting old issues is toxic and pointless, honestly changes nothing about the present. Answering the same questions over and over about the same 10 situations that have haunted this family for 15 years isn't helping anyone. And this idea that some apology magically fixed things, or that it somehow tied a neat little bow on the so-called healing of this family, completely fell flat. We reach the very end of this tell. All and nothing has changed. Nothing. They are not friends. None of them are friends. They don't interact. They don't believe there will ever be some harmonious reunion. At best, they'll be cordial, but they are never going to be close. There will never be a meeting of the minds. They will never again be the unified family TLC spent this entire season desperately trying to piece back together. Sure, watching the fallout has been interesting for viewers. What hasn't been interesting is watching them pretend they still have relationships when it's painfully obvious. They don't. These people are living entirely separate lives now. And what this all completely ignored, was the damage that's been done along the way. What it failed to acknowledge was how deeply and permanently the children have been affected. Suki repeatedly tried to blame these women for the breakdown of their relationships with Kody, shaming them for having outside friendships, outside connections. She even tried to drag Jen into the narrative as the supposed reason Mary left Kody. Yes, because apparently now, 10 years later, Kody is blaming Jen for why Mary left him. Make it make sense. Kody openly admits to inserting himself into Mary's life, telling her that Jen wasn't a good influence, that she was unsafe, because she tried to pull Mary away from him a decade ago. Why does Kody even care? They're broken up. Why is he calling Mary to warn her about Jen, saying she's not safe? That's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. This is a man who didn't want Mary. He didn't want to talk to her. He didn't want to share a bed with her. He didn't want to live with her. He wanted nothing to do with her, except for the money she brought in. That's it. And now we're supposed to believe that 10 years later, Mary leaving was somehow Jen's fault. Kody is mad at Jen because Jen tells the truth. Because Jen says out loud that Kody isn't a good person, that he manipulates these women, that he pits them against one another, that they abandoned Mary, that Mary essentially became invisible to this family for a decade and was scapegoated the entire time. There was zero conversation about the harm done to the children. No acknowledgement of the long-term damage caused by Kody's non-existent relationships with his kids. Kody was not held accountable for having no relationship with a minor child, his legal child, by the way. His daughter Truly, who he does not have a relationship with, who doesn't even live in the same state. Sure, he likely pays child support because the court requires it. But beyond that, there is nothing connecting Kody to Truly. They don't have a relationship at all. And yet, no one addresses it. No one challenges him on it. There's no shaming, no accountability. Not even Christine and David bring it up. And I'm sure part of the reason they avoid it is because they don't want to drag the kids into it, or publicly discuss the kids' issues. But here's the problem with that. They brought those kids into the public eye 15 years ago, and now we're just supposed to look away from what Kody has done behind the scenes to these women and to these children. So TLC can neatly wrap this up and pretend everyone is happy and healed. It's a lie. Flat out, it's a lie. Janelle sitting there playing Keep Sweet, smiling and saying, "Everything is great. I'm so happy, I don't need an apology." Kody saying sorry was healing. I don't buy it. Not for 1 second. I don't believe it at all. I also don't believe that Jen told Janelle to take the money and run. I don't believe Janelle fired Jen from her bug spraying job. I don't believe any of that. Jen has absolutely no reason to lie here. None. Why would she say, "Yeah, I shut down my business, and I was still doing work for Janelle right up until I closed it. She never fired me." If that wasn't true, there's no upside for her. This just feels like another cover-up. Another convenient story to protect people who don't want to own their behavior. And Jen has also been openly critical of Janelle for years, especially for how Janelle cut Mary out and tried to push her off Coyote Pass. Janelle was fine for years with Mary getting less than everyone else, She was the family bookkeeper and never once advocated for Mary. Not once. When they were fighting over Coyote Pass for 4 years, Janelle was perfectly okay with Mary getting 2 acres while she got 5. And now that Janelle has gotten her money from Kody, now that she's financially squared away, suddenly she has nothing negative to say about anyone. Yeah, I don't believe that either. Now Christine and David are out here openly talking about the damage polygamy causes. We're seeing the kids speak up on social media, talking about the harm they endured and the fact that many of them have no relationship with their father. And what are we doing? Ignoring it because it doesn't serve the narrative. Because it's not good for ratings. Instead of addressing what actually destroyed this family, TLC wants to focus on inconsequential moments that happened after everything had already fallen apart. The catfishing happened after the marriage was already over. It wasn't an affair, it was a catfish. And now Robyn is saying, yes, I was in the middle of it, and I told Kody she was having an affair. Meanwhile, Janelle, Mary, and Jen all say they tried to explain to him what was really happening. They tried to show him it was a catfish. They tried to explain the threats, the manipulation, the coercion. How Mary was being forced to leave voicemails and say things, or else she'd face consequences. He didn't care. It was more important to Kody to label it an affair and blame Mary, even though they weren't legally married anymore, and he had already emotionally and physically left her for Robyn. Nothing was resolved. That's the bottom line. Nothing. This entire final hour was just another rehashing of the catfishing, another replay of Mary's dark time for the 10,000th time. And do you know why they keep dragging that moment up? Because that was the last time Mary and Kody had any kind of relationship at all. There's nothing else to reference. Nothing in the last decade that shows they were actually together beyond filming a television show. Outside of filming, Mary lived a completely separate life. She rarely saw them. They didn't share a bed. They didn't share a home. They didn't share a marriage. Kody and Mary were not together. She stayed because she was bound by belief, by manipulation, by indoctrination, and now she's finally breaking free. And honestly, I'm proud of her for that. But the reason they keep circling back to her darkest moment is because that was the end. That's where her relationship with Kody truly died. And at the end of all of this, the people I feel the worst for are the kids, every single time. Listen, these women have all been through hell, all of them even. To some extent, Robyn. Because no woman should ever be raised in a polygamous cult. No woman should ever be taught that her worth only exists through a man. No woman should be told that the only way she gets into heaven is by marrying a man and accepting that he's entitled to multiple wives. No woman should be indoctrinated to believe that suffering is holy, that enduring pain and being given less is somehow a virtue or a spiritual requirement. That's not faith, that's conditioning. And at the same time, TLC trying to slap a bow on this absolute mess and pretend everything is resolved. Like everyone's healed, everyone's moved on. Nobody has anything left to say. Is just not how real life works. That's not how trauma works. Even when people move forward, even when they enter new relationships or start new chapters, the damage from the past doesn't just disappear. You don't have to relive it or rehash it for it to still exist. We don't need to go back 10 years and analyze why Kody and Mary didn't work out. I can answer that in one word: polygamy. Why did all the relationships fall apart? Polygamy. Why were the wives constantly fighting? Polygamy. Why were they set up to compete against one another? Polygamy. Why are they battling over money now? Polygamy. Why do the kids feel neglected and abandoned by their father? Polygamy. Why does Kody take zero responsibility and act like he's untouchable? Like he can do whatever he wants without consequence? Polygamy. Why does Kody think he's entitled to a god complex? Polygamy. Why does he believe he can use and discard these women, demand apologies, and still see himself as the injured party? Polygamy. Why does he think, after 10 years, he has the right to dictate who Mary is friends with? Polygamy. That's it. That's the answer. Kody does not see these women as individuals. He never has. He doesn't value their independence. He doesn't respect their intelligence. He doesn't appreciate their contributions. He doesn't see them as autonomous human beings. He does not value women. Full stop. And watching this tell, All I saw was Suki reinforcing the same misogynistic, abusive tropes that keep women trapped, controlled, and harmed in polygamous systems. Christine, meanwhile, has taken massive steps forward, steps that matter. For the first time, she openly acknowledged the truth in her book. She acknowledged sexual abuse within the cult. She acknowledged that leaders were abusing children. She acknowledged fraud. She acknowledged that she left because leaders were accused of abusing and assaulting minors. She also acknowledged something deeply personal and devastating, that her own father, her grandfather, was murdered as a direct result of polygamy, because another man who believed himself to be the one true leader ordered violence against those he deemed false prophets, including Rulon Allred. Christine has consistently tried to tell the truth about what this system really is and what it does to people. And every time, her voice has been minimized, dismissed, or softened to make others more comfortable. Even David has been dragged into that nonsense, portrayed as clueless or unsupportive. I see the criticism online all the time, especially on Reddit. People say things like, well, he might be better than Kody, but he's still conservative. He's still this. He's still that. And I'm like, what do you expect? You don't pull people out of a cult and instantly turn them into progressives. And why does this even have to be political? This isn't about party affiliation. This is about believing that women shouldn't be harmed, controlled, or subjugated. David clearly believes that. That shouldn't be controversial. That should be baseline humanity. Women should not be treated like property. They shouldn't be bought, sold, bartered, or traded. They shouldn't be reduced to household labor, wombs, or income streams for men. That's all women are in this system, tools to serve male power. And honestly, that's why this season was so hard to watch, because the people telling the truth were silenced, minimized, and talked over, while the cult programming that still controls parts of this family was allowed to dominate the narrative. What I took away from this tell-all, at least this week, is that Kody is still fully entrenched in the cult mindset. He still believes he has the authority to tell Mary who she should and shouldn't be friends with. He still thinks he gets to decide which people are safe for her. That alone tells me nothing has changed. I also learned that Robyn will never take responsibility for being nosy, for acting as Kody's informant, for doing his dirty work on his behalf. She interfered in these relationships because she had to in order to survive and get what she needed. If Robyn could pull Kody away from the other wives, then all of his money, time, and resources would funnel to her. She gets what she wants, and in her mind, nothing else matters, because survival is the currency of polygamy. Women in these systems are ruthless toward one another because they are all competing for the same limited resources. Why do the women fight? Polygamy. Why do the men deliberately pit them against each other? Polygamy. Because if the women ever truly communicated, if they trusted one another, they'd very quickly realize the man is the problem, not them. They'd see the cult for what it is. They'd realize the man isn't a prophet, and certainly isn't a god. But as long as he keeps them fighting each other, they'll never look too closely at what he's doing. I honestly wish I could say there was something, anything, remotely compelling in this final hour of the tell-all, but there wasn't. Robyn admits she meddled. Jen says Robyn framed her marriage license and hung it on the wall, which deeply hurt Mary. And the reality is, Mary was abandoned by everyone. No one showed up for her. No one really showed up for anyone. Janelle fabricates a story about Jen because Jen has spoken uncomfortable truths about Janelle. Truths Janelle doesn't like. It's also clear that Janelle and Christine are no longer as close as they once were. They just aren't. Their increasingly opposite views on polygamy have created distance that continues to grow. It's also obvious that Janelle doesn't like David, because David tells the truth about polygamy, and Janelle doesn't want to hear it. Janelle may live in North Carolina now. She may be physically separated from Kody, but she is still mentally stuck in that cult framework. And you don't escape that just by moving states. You don't outrun it, you have to work through it. And the last thing someone who has spent their life inside a criminalized system, one rooted in fraud, welfare abuse, bankruptcy manipulation, and real estate schemes, should be doing is positioning themselves as a life coach or telling anyone else how to live. But the cult also teaches its members that they are elite, chosen, superior, and breaking that mindset is incredibly difficult. It seems to me that the only people in this family who have actually done any real work are Mary and Christine, and that's just the truth because of that. I genuinely think this show is finished, and if it does come back, it won't be for long. The restructuring happening at Discovery is going to play a major role in whether it returns at all. They may try to reboot something, but I can't see it lasting more than a single season. If this wasn't the final episode, I'll be genuinely surprised. So tell me what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you don't miss an upload. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.